Her voice tore through the silence, raw and pleading, "Please, get it out." Her hands shook as she clutched at his shirt, dragging him closer. The arrow buried in her chest glowed faintly, the shaft pulsing like a wicked vein of fire inside her. Her eyes, burning with pain, locked on his, desperate and fevered. He could smell the iron tang of her blood, thick in the cold air, and yet beneath it was something else warm, wild, intoxicating. He had no idea how long she had been fighting before she stumbled into his arms, but now she was trembling against him, strong body collapsing under the weight of her wound, lips parting with ragged breaths that brushed against his cheek. He had never held anyone so fierce and so fragile at once. His heart hammered in his chest, not only from fear of losing her, but from the unshakable pull she had on him, like gravity had shifted and dragged him into her orbit forever. He swallowed hard, staring down at the arrow. The shaft was unlike anything he'd seen, metal fused with a strange crystalline edge, the wound around it burning with faint light. It wasn't just tearing her flesh, it was poisoning her, seeping through her veins like wildfire. His hands hovered above it, trembling. One wrong move and it could splinter inside her, tearing her apart. He was no surgeon, just a man who'd learned to stop bleeding when battles left scars on his own skin. But now, with her body pressed to his, her blood staining his hands, he had to be more than that. She gritted her teeth and hissed when he touched near the wound. "Don't hesitate. Do it." Her voice cracked, but behind the pain was fury, the command of someone who'd never begged before. A warrior. A predator. And yet now she was breaking before him, pleading with the same lips that could order armies. His chest tightened as he saw her defiance war with her fear, as if she couldn't decide whether to push him away or cling tighter. He brushed a strand of damp, midnight hair from her face, his fingers shaking. "If I move too quickly, it'll kill you. If I move too slowly, the poison wins. I can't promise." Her hand shot up, gripping his jaw with surprising strength. Her palm burned against his skin, her claws pricking lightly at his neck. Her breath ghosted over his lips. "Promise me one thing," she whispered, her voice trembling in a way that made it sound less like a demand and more like a confession. "Don't let me die alone." The words cut deeper than any blade. His throat tightened, and before he could stop himself, he pressed his forehead to hers, closing the tiny distance between them. "I won't." Her grip faltered, fingers curling into his collar as if she drew strength from the heat of his body. Her skin was burning under his touch, veins glowing faintly violet where the poison spread. He had seconds, maybe minutes, to act. His pulse roared in his ears as he took hold of the arrow, steadying his breath. The moment he touched it, her entire body arched, a strangled cry ripping from her throat. She buried her face against his shoulder, muffling her screams against his skin, and he felt every tremor of her agony as though it were his own. "Easy, easy," he whispered, though the words were useless against pain like this. His hand cupped the back of her head, pulling her close even as his other hand worked at the weapon. The poison hissed like steam where his fingers brushed the shaft. The thing was alive, almost feeding on her suffering. He bit down on his fear and twisted it carefully, just enough to test. Her scream vibrated through his chest, but her grip on him didn't loosen. If anything, she clung tighter, nails digging into his back as though anchoring herself to him would keep her from shattering. Her lips brushed his ear as she gasped, "Don't stop, please. If you stop, I'm dead already." The plea was softer this time, less a command than a confession of trust. He had known her only minutes, but the way her voice cracked against his skin, the way her heart thundered against his chest, made it feel like a bond older than memory. He forced himself to keep steady, twisting a fraction more, his teeth grinding against the sound of her pain. Sweat rolled down his temple as he felt the arrow shift. "Just a little more, Anne." Her body jolted violently, a cry tearing free so raw it felt like it split the air itself. For a moment he thought he had lost her, that the poison had taken her. Her eyes rolled back, then snapped forward, glowing faintly in the dim light. Her hand fisted his shirt, yanking him closer until their noses almost touched. Her lips trembled as if words were trying to escape but failing. Instead, she let out a breath that quivered against his skin, as if sharing her last breath with him. His own breath shuddered as he stared into those eyes, alien, yes, but filled with something he knew all too well, fear of being left behind. He realized then that this wasn't just about saving her life. It was about saving the part of her that had never allowed herself to need anyone before. He pressed his hand against her cheek, ignoring the blood smearing his fingers. "Hold on. I've got you." Her lips parted, trembling as though she wanted to say his name but couldn't. Instead, a whisper left her that shook him to his core. "Don't let go." The arrow pulsed one more time beneath his grip, heat biting into his palm like a brand. He knew he had one chance. One pull, one gamble that could save her or break her beyond repair. His chest rose and fell in ragged breaths as he braced himself, her face pressed against his neck, her body shuddering violently in his arms. The world outside vanished, the sounds of the forest, the distant storm, the blood pooling beneath them. All that existed was her heartbeat stuttering against his chest and the unbearable thought of it stopping. His fingers tightened on the arrow. His lips brushed against her temple, a fleeting kiss, unplanned and desperate, as though sealing a vow. "I won't let you go." And with that, he pulled. The scream that tore from her throat was like nothing he'd ever heard, shaking his soul to its core. Her body arched, veins glowing like fire beneath her skin, her nails carving deep into his shoulders as if trying to anchor herself to life through him. He held her tighter, refusing to let her break apart, whispering over and over into her ear, "Stay with me, stay with me." And then, silence. Her body went limp in his arms. The arrow clattered to the ground, still glowing faintly with poison. His breath caught in his throat as he looked down at her face, pale and still, her eyes closed. His heart stopped. For a moment, he thought she was gone. Then her lips twitched, parting slightly as a faint breath escaped them, carrying with it one trembling word that seared itself into him. His name. Her breath was shallow, fragile, but it was there. He pressed his ear close to her lips, waiting, counting each rise and fall of her chest as though the rhythm was the only thing tethering him to reality. Relief swept through him in a wave so fierce it nearly buckled his knees. He had pulled the arrow free, but the damage was far from undone. The wound still glowed faintly, pulsing with poison, her veins lit like dying embers beneath her skin. She wasn't safe yet. He tore at his shirt, ripping fabric into strips, pressing them hard against her chest to stem the bleeding. His hands moved fast, but his heart trembled with every touch. The heat from her body was unnatural, feverish. Beads of sweat rolled down her temple, and her lips moved faintly, murmuring words he couldn't quite catch. He leaned close, catching fragments of her alien tongue, soft, lyrical syllables that carried more pain than meaning. "Save your strength," he whispered, brushing damp hair from her face. "Talk later. Just breathe." Her eyes fluttered open at his voice, those violet irises locking onto him again, fierce even in weakness. "You stayed." Her words cracked, the tone brittle, as though she hadn't expected it. He almost laughed, though there was nothing humorous in the moment. "Of course I stayed." He pressed harder against the wound, grimacing as her body jerked from the pressure. "Did you think I'd just leave you here?" Her jaw tightened, and for the briefest moment, he saw something raw in her gaze. Fear, not of the wound, not of death, but of trust. Her hand, trembling, found his wrist. Her grip was weak, but her fingers still pressed into his skin as if testing whether he was truly there. "You don't understand," she rasped. No one risks themselves for me. They fear me. Or they use me. But stay." Her eyes searched his, disbelief warring with the faintest glimmer of something softer. "That word doesn't exist in my life." He swallowed hard, meeting her stare. "Then let me change that." Her lips parted, but no words came. Instead, her breath caught, a sharp gasp as pain ripped through her again. Her body arched against the ground, the poison flaring like fire beneath her skin. He cursed under his breath, grabbing for the satchel at his side. His fingers closed around a small vial of salve, something he had carried for years to soothe his own wounds. It wasn't meant for alien physiology, but it was all he had. "This might burn," he muttered. "Do it." Her voice was hoarse, commanding, though her trembling body betrayed the strength she was losing. He smeared the salve across the wound, and she jolted violently, a cry ripping from her throat as smoke hissed from her skin. Her nails raked the earth beside her, carving deep grooves in the dirt. He leaned over her, pinning her shoulders to keep her steady, his face only inches above hers. "Breathe through it," he urged, his own voice shaking. "Stay with me. Just stay with me." Her eyes squeezed shut, teeth gritted against the agony. Then, slowly, her breathing steadied, her body settling beneath his weight. Her chest rose and fell in ragged rhythm, but she hadn't slipped away. Not yet. When her eyes opened again, they were glassy, fever-bright, but focused. And the way she looked at him, gods, it unraveled him. There was no armor in that gaze, no warrior's mask. Just a woman in pain, clinging to the presence of the only soul who hadn't abandoned her. "You fight for me," she whispered, voice trembling. "Why?" He froze, searching for an answer. He could tell her it was duty, that no decent man would leave her. He could say it was instinct, the stubborn refusal to watch anyone die if he could stop it. But the truth was already pounding in his chest, and it frightened him more than her wound. "I don't know," he admitted, his voice low, rough. "All I know is, the thought of you gone feels wrong. Like the world would be emptier. Like I would be emptier." Her lips trembled, the faintest shadow of a smile breaking through her pain. She reached for him again, her fingertips grazing his cheek. The touch was featherlight but seared him more deeply than any flame. "No one has ever said that to me." He caught her hand, pressing it to his face, holding it there as if anchoring himself in her touch. Her skin was hot, fevered, but he didn't care. "Then hear it now. I'm not letting you go." For a moment, the world narrowed to just them, the warmth of her skin against his, the ragged sound of her breathing, the closeness that pulsed like a second heartbeat between them. He could feel her words before she spoke them, soft, trembling against the silence. "I don't want you to." The confession was almost lost in the wind, but he heard it, felt it in his bones. His chest tightened, and before he could think better of it, he leaned closer. Their lips hovered a breath apart, her breath mingling with his, charged with everything they hadn't yet dared to say. But just as the space between them threatened to break, her body jolted again, a violent spasm ripping through her. Her hand clutched his shirt, dragging him closer, but this time it wasn't out of want, it was desperation. Her veins glowed brighter, the poison spreading faster than before, racing up her throat. She gasped, choking on the fire inside her, eyes wide with terror. "Don't let me go," she begged, the words breaking apart with each ragged breath. He gathered her into his arms, cradling her against his chest as if holding her tighter could keep her from unraveling. His heart thundered, panic clawing at him as he felt her pulse falter. "I've got you," he swore, voice breaking. "I swear, I've got you." Her eyes met his one last time before another wave of pain stole her voice. They were glassy, but in them he saw trust, the kind that terrified him because he knew how rare it must have been for her to give. And then her body stiffened, her veins blazing with light, as though the poison itself had chosen this moment to claim her fully. He held her closer, whispering into her ear, "Stay with me. Please. Stay." Her lips brushed his jaw, trembling against his skin. And with a voice barely audible, she whispered a word he didn't understand, foreign and musical, but the way she said it made him certain it meant only one thing. "You." Her body convulsed in his arms, heat searing through her as if her blood had turned to fire. The veins along her throat and chest burned with that strange violet glow, spreading faster now, a river of light running beneath her skin. He pressed his forehead to hers, desperate to anchor her as her strength slipped. The sound of her gasps, broken and uneven, shredded him from the inside. "Stay with me," he whispered again and again, voice hoarse. "I won't lose you. Not now." But as he held her, he realized the wound wasn't simple. Pulling the arrow had freed her from one prison, but it had left behind fragments, shards of that alien crystal lodged deep within her flesh. Each shard pulsed like a living parasite, spreading the poison further with every beat of her heart. He clenched his jaw, fury mixing with fear. He hadn't saved her, he'd only bought her a few breaths. Her hand clawed weakly at his chest, dragging his eyes back to hers. "It won't stop," she rasped, her voice raw. "It's inside me, breaking me apart." "No," he said, more to himself than her. "Not while I'm here. Not while you're in my arms." His hand hovered over the wound, trembling. He could feel the faint vibrations of the shards beneath her skin. He would have to cut them free, one by one, with nothing but his knife and his hands. The thought made his stomach twist. One wrong move, and he'd destroy her from the inside. But doing nothing meant letting her fade away, and he couldn't bear that. Not after everything she had given him in her pleading gaze, in the fragile trust she had whispered against his skin. She saw the hesitation flicker across his face, even through the haze of her fever. A weak smile curved her lips, bitter and fragile. "You're afraid of losing you," he admitted, the words torn from him. "Of failing you." Her eyes softened, even as pain racked her body. "Then don't fail me. Be brave, for both of us." The plea in her voice was softer than before, no longer the command of a warrior, but the whisper of a woman laying herself bare. And it broke something inside him, something that had kept him distant, safe from the pull she had on him. He bent low, pressing his lips gently against her damp temple, letting her feel the shudder of his breath. "I'll be brave," he swore. "For you." With trembling hands, he reached for his knife. The blade caught what little light seeped through the forest canopy above, glinting coldly. He steadied himself, laying her back on the torn earth. She hissed in pain, her body arching, but her hand never left his shirt, still clutching him as though she feared he would vanish the moment she let go. "Look at me," he told her, locking his eyes with hers. "Don't look at the pain. Just me. Only me." Her lips parted, and for a moment, her breath steadied, her gaze drinking him in like a lifeline. Then, with a shuddering exhale, she nodded faintly. "Only you." The first cut drew a cry from her throat so sharp it echoed through the trees. She arched upward, teeth bared, but he held her steady, whispering against her ear. "Stay with me. Just a little longer." His fingers worked quickly, sliding the blade just enough to dislodge the first shard. It burned against his fingertips as he pulled it free, the crystal hissing like it loathed leaving her body. He tossed it aside, hearing it crackle faintly on the ground. Her breathing came in harsh gasps, but she was still there, her gaze locked on him. "One," she whispered faintly, counting. He realized what she was doing, marking each shard, clinging to numbers to hold herself steady. He nodded, tears stinging his eyes. "One. Just a few more." The second shard was deeper, closer to her ribs. His blade worked carefully, but the moment he touched it, she screamed again, her nails digging into his back. He pressed his lips to her hairline, whispering furiously, "I'm here. I've got you. Too." Her body shook violently, but she nodded weakly, forcing the number past her lips. "Two." By the third, his hands were slick with her blood, his breath ragged. She was losing strength quickly, her voice fading. Each shard seemed to fight him, as though the poison itself wanted her consumed. But he kept going, pulled forward by something deeper than desperation. Every time she whimpered, every time her breath hitched against his neck, he felt the truth burn brighter in him. He wasn't just saving her life. He was saving the piece of himself he hadn't realized was missing until she fell into his arms. Her hand, trembling and weak, found his cheek again as he pulled the third shard free. Why do you care so much?" The question tore at him. He stared into her fever-bright eyes, the knife forgotten in his blooded hand. He could have lied, could have claimed it was duty or instinct. But the truth spilled out, raw and unguarded. "Because you're not just a warrior. You're not just someone to fear. You're everything I didn't know I needed. And if I lose you, I'll never forgive myself." Her lips trembled, parting as if to speak, but instead she let out a choked laugh, fragile and broken. "No one has ever said that to me." Her hand slipped, falling weakly against his chest, but her eyes still held his. "I wish I had met you sooner." His chest ached, and he pressed his lips to her forehead, whispering against her skin, "We have now. And I won't waste it." The fourth shard pulsed violently, deeper than the others, almost fused with her. As he pressed the blade down, her body convulsed violently, her scream muffled only by his shoulder. Her nails carved deep into his arm, and he thought she might break apart in his hands. "Stay with me," he roared, pulling the shard free with one final wrench. Her body went limp, glowing veins fading slowly to darkness. For a terrifying heartbeat, he thought it was over. He pressed his hands against the wound, whispering her name desperately. "Don't leave me. Not now. Not when I." His voice cracked, the words lost, too raw to finish. Then her chest rose in a shallow breath, faint but steady. Her eyes fluttered open, glassy but alive, and her lips curved faintly. "4," she whispered, voice weak but defiant. His head bowed, a laugh choked with tears escaping him. "4. That's right." But before relief could settle, the sound of snapping branches echoed in the distance. Shadows moved between the trees, closing in. Her eyes widened, terror flashing through them. "They found me," she breathed, voice barely audible. "They'll kill you for helping me." He glanced toward the dark shapes, then back at her, tightening his hold on her trembling form. "They'll have to go through me first." Her gaze lingered on him, fierce even through her exhaustion. And though her lips trembled, the words that slipped from them carried a strength that cut through her fear. "Then we fight together." The glow of the poison faded, but the fire in her eyes blazed anew. The forest around them pulsed with danger. Shadows slid between the trees, shapes of armored figures moving with precision, their eyes glinting with the same cold fire as the arrow that had nearly ended her life. He could hear the faint hum of their weapons, the low thrum of predators drawing near. Still he held her, blood on his hands, his breath ragged, his chest pressed to hers as if his body alone could shield her from the world. "You can't fight them," she whispered, her voice thin but fierce, violet eyes blazing even through exhaustion. "They'll cut you down." "Then let them try," he said, his jaw tight, his hand steady as he brushed her hair back from her damp face. "I'm not leaving you." Her lips parted, trembling. There was no time for the mask of the warrior to return, no space for walls. What remained was raw, an alien woman who had spent her life alone, now cradled by the one man reckless enough to risk everything for her. "You're a fool," she breathed. He bent closer, his lips brushing her ear, his words low and steady. "Maybe. But I'm your fool." Her breath caught, a soft shiver running through her body at the weight of his words. Before either could say more, the air split with the crackle of weapons fire, bolts of energy scorching bark, shaking the ground. He scooped her into his arms, ignoring her weak protests, and moved deeper into the shadows, weaving between trees. Every step jarred her wound, and she bit back cries, pressing her face against his neck. He felt her breath hot on his skin, her heartbeat fluttering weakly against his chest. Still, she clung to him, her fingers curled into his torn shirt. For a moment, the battlefield shrank to only that connection, her need and his refusal to let go. A shout rang out. Figures closed in, surrounding them, weapons raised. He set her gently against a fallen trunk, drawing his blade with blooded hands. His body stood between her and the soldiers, his stance unyielding though exhaustion clawed at him. "Move aside," one of them barked, voice filtered through a metallic helm. "The warrior belongs to us. She carries what we need. You're nothing." He didn't flinch. "Then you'll have to kill me to get her." Behind him, she forced herself upright, her body trembling. Her voice, though weak, cut through the night like steel. "No. You'll face us both." The soldiers shifted uneasily as her glowing veins flared, dim but defiant. Her eyes locked on him, fierce and soft all at once. "Together," she whispered, and he knew she meant more than the fight. The battle that followed blurred into heat and fury. He moved with raw desperation, every strike of his blade fueled not by survival but by the need to protect the woman at his back. She, even broken and bleeding, unleashed power from her veins, shards of violet energy bursting from her palms, scattering their attackers. They fought as one, breath to breath, heartbeat to heartbeat, their movements an unspoken vow, neither would let the other fall. When the last soldier collapsed into the dirt, silence pressed heavy over the clearing. He staggered, blood streaking his arm, chest heaving, until he turned to her. She leaned against the trunk, trembling, her skin pale, but her eyes alive, burning brighter than the stars above. He dropped to his knees beside her, gathering her face into his hands. "You're safe," he whispered, though it sounded like a plea as much as a promise. Her lips curved faintly, a shadow of her warrior's smile. "Because of you." Her hand, weak but deliberate, rose to press against his chest, over his racing heart. I should hate you for this, for making me weak, for making me need you. But all I feel is this. Her words broke into silence, but he understood. His hand covered hers, pressing her palm tighter against his chest. You're not weak, he said, his voice shaking. You're the strongest being I've ever seen. And his throat caught, the words burning. He forced them out, raw and true. I love you. Fierce, reckless, impossible, you. And I don't care if it kills me, I'll keep saying it until you believe it. Her eyes widened, shimmering with unshed tears, her breath faltering as though the confession itself struck deeper than the shards he had pulled from her. For a heartbeat, she said nothing. Then, with trembling fingers, she pulled him closer, her lips brushing his with the softest, most fragile kiss. It was nothing like the fire of battle or the sting of pain. It was tender, searching, a question and an answer all at once. He cupped her face, deepening the kiss, letting her feel every ounce of his vow. Her body melted against his, not in surrender, but in trust. When they broke apart, her forehead rested against his, her voice a whisper. I begged you to get it out. I never thought you'd give me back more than my life. You gave me this. He smiled through tears, brushing her cheek with his thumb. And I'll keep giving it. As long as I breathe. The forest was quiet now, their enemies scattered, but danger still lingered in the horizon. Yet as he held her, her hand in his, neither felt fear. She was still wounded, still fragile, but her spirit was unbroken, and for the first time, she didn't carry it alone. Her eyes met his again, soft and unguarded. Then we fight together, she repeated, but this time there was no desperation in the words. Only promise. He pulled her close, pressing his lips to her hair as the dawn broke faintly through the trees, painting the world in pale light. And for the first time in years, he believed the future, however uncertain, might be worth facing. Not because he had survived the night, but because she had survived with him. Her hand tightened around his, small but unyielding. Don't let go, she whispered once more, though now it was not fear but faith that filled her voice. Never, he answered. And he meant it with everything left in him.